All right. Hi, everybody. My name is JP Peters. I am with the Students Civic Engagement Office. I'm the advisor from the college side um, today. So what we're going to do today is going to do a brief introduction of our speakers, and then we're going to move to our program summary and go for it from there. So if y'all would, Fallon, if you wouldn't mind starting.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Fallon Proctor, and I'm a coordinator for student assistance in the Dean of Students office.
Hi, everyone. I am Louisa Fortin. I'm with the education team at the Atlanta Community Food Bank, and with me today is Lan. I'll have her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Lan with the Atlanta Community Food Bank on the education team as well.
Hi, hello. My name is Maya. I am with Civic Engagement at Georgia State University, and I'm a work studies student.
All right, so we're going to continue on with our program summary of today's program. So as you can see on your screen, we're going to move on from here into an icebreaker briefly with Louisa. And then we're going to move into the presentations where each group talks about various things such as history, what it is their organization does, some of the things that they're doing for the community, and then maybe we're going to also speak on COVID-19 and some of the impacts of that. And after that, we're going to have our call to action resource slide up, and I'll address that when we have it up, and then we'll move into that question and answer piece. When we do get into question and answer, you'll see a Q&A box, and there's also a chat box. If you wouldn't mind responding all in the Q&A box with your questions, so that way we can answer them, and we'll do our best to try to get to as many as possible. And if we do not, certainly feel free to reach out to us at civicengagement@gsu.edu, and we'll do our best to get you an answer as soon as possible. So that being said, Louisa, if you wouldn't mind starting us off with our icebreaker.
Awesome, yeah. So let me start here by sharing my screen. Okay, I'm hoping you guys are able to see a picture of some of my favorite food. So I would like to start this conversation just to ground us by talking about how food creates meaning in our lives. So food, is very powerful. It ties us to memories, it ties us to people, to time. So I want to dissect that a little bit more by asking you guys, what does food mean to you? Again, it's something very personal, so I want to invite you to share. Lan's gonna hopefully be able to read some of those out loud for me, since I can't see the chat box right now, but I'll kick us off by telling you guys that food to me means joy. So like you see here in the picture, these are some naca tamales. It's like a version of a tamal. My mom is from Nicaragua, and these were a staple for every special celebration in my house. So just the sight and the smell of them immediately brings a smile to my face. Just it makes me like so excited. So to me, again, food means joy. So I want to ask you guys, what does food mean to you? Feel free to enter it in the chat box, and I invite panelists also to share with us. And you can also talk about some dishes maybe that help express those feelings or those things.
We have energy, fulfillment, nutrition. A great meal can be the completion to any day.
Yes.
Food means comfort.
Definitely. Food definitely means all of those things. So again, food is how we express where we come from. It helps express or tell our personal histories, our stories, our connections. So all that being said, life and health don't happen without food, right? It is essential and it is urgent to sustain life, but it is also the way that we express love and gratitude and give comfort and support to each other. Like you have said, you know, comfort is definitely a key thing that food is able to provide for us. So now that we have established that, what food means to us and the power that it has in bringing people together, I want you to think about this. More than 37 million people across this country are food insecure. Food is more than calories and nutrition. The pain of food insecurity is more than physical, right? It's how we express all of these emotions. It helps us express who we are, and it's how we take care of ourselves and others. So with that, I, again, like to start that conversation just to help ground us and remind us of what food means, and it meaning much more than just numbers, right? So sometimes in the food banking world, we get wrapped up in the figures of how much food we're moving, how many pounds are coming in and coming out. So I just want to start us with that reminder of the power that food has and the role that it plays in our lives. Again, I'm Luisa. I'm with the education team at the Atlanta Community Food Bank. I will start by telling you a little bit about the history of the food bank. If you're not familiar with us, we were founded in 1979. Our founder, Bill Bowling, who's pictured there, that's him, started out the food bank out of the basement of St. Luke's Episcopal Church. So he identified a problem, identified that there were hungry individuals and families in the community, and he also was able to figure out a way to salvage food from grocers. So he was building bridges between grocers and food vendors and communities in need. So he started off like that, serving 25 agencies in the metro Atlanta area. He was distributing roughly 15,000 pounds of food in the first year. We're actually one of the oldest food banks in the nation. So that being said, we actually played a very important role in founding Feeding America. So if you're not familiar with Feeding America, it's the nationwide network of food banks, and it's comprised of over 200 food banks in the nation. So that's that. So with that being said, this is us today. So 40 years later, we are now located in East Point as of early March. If I'm not mistaken, the move date was moved like 300 times, but it was early March when we finally made it into the new building. It's crazy to think that from that basement of 10 to 13 staff members, we're now at over 175. We serve 29 counties now in the metro Atlanta and North Georgia area. We have over 700 partner agencies. Those agencies include food pantries, shelters, community kitchens, after-school programs. Last year, we were able to distribute over 71 million pounds of food and grocery products. 22% of that was fresh produce, which equals roughly 60 million meals, and it was able to reach over 755,000 people, which is crazy how we've been able to do that. Now, I want to touch a little bit about our COVID response. I'll go into a little more depth into that later in the presentation, but COVID has obviously impacted our distribution significantly. This past month, we were actually able to distribute 10 million pounds of food, which is insane. And the only reason why I want to highlight this at this point is because that would have been very difficult to do in our old facility. So that's just kind of to give you an idea of the scope of work that we're able to do thanks to the new building that we have. Okay, here, just to give you a more conceptual look at what our service area looks like. Again, we have over 700 partner agencies. So these partner agencies, like I said, are community-based agencies. They are comprised of faith-based organizations, fellow nonprofits, and what they do is they come to the food bank. They're able to get food from us, food that we get through donations, salvaging from grocers, just the way that Bill Bowling did back in the day. That food that we purchase, right? That we go out there and purchase. So these partner agencies come to us, and then they take the food to their fellow communities. Now, not all of the agencies come to us due to geographical reasons, so we do deliver food out into these agencies as well, depending on where they're located. But I just wanted to give you an idea or a brief idea of how that works and how agencies are able to come and get food from us. Now, I want to define food insecurity and hunger because you're going to hear both those terms a lot. I've already mentioned it like 50 times, and you're going to hear it 50 more times during the rest of the call. But the U.S. Department of Agriculture defines food insecurity as a lack of consistent access to enough food for an active, healthy life. Now, hunger refers to a personal physical sensation of discomfort, while food insecurity refers to the lack of available financial resources for food at the household level. So hunger is that feeling that we get right before lunch, right before breakfast, right before dinner, right? That sensation. It's not something that I can see in you. It's not something that I can measure, but food insecurity is. Food insecurity is something that we can measure because we're able to identify barriers to the access to food. So I just wanted to differentiate those two terms for you guys. Next, I want to lead you all to this website. So this is the Map the Meal Gap located in the Feeding America website. And you are able to look in detail at food insecurity statistics for every county in the country. And the reason why I want to hold this up is because I want to show you guys that food insecurity lives everywhere in our country, right? It's not something that's Georgia specific. It's not Atlanta specific. It's something that unfortunately touches our entire nation. So I invite you to use this tool and taking a deeper dive of what those figures look like, especially if you're a data-driven person. Now that we have defined food insecurity, I want you to participate in this next exercise with me by answering in the chat box this following question. When you think about who is hungry and who is food insecure, who do you think of? What are these general populations that come into your mind? And I'll have Lan read them out for me as you guys enter it in the chat box.
I've re-answered the question into the chat box for anyone who missed it.
Yeah. So in case you missed it, Lan has entered in the question. Again, I'll repeat it. Who do you think of when you think about who is hungry and food insecure?
So we have low-income households, socioeconomically disadvantaged individuals, students, large families, those who may experience homelessness.
Yeah, so that's accurate. So those are all general those are general populations that we serve, right? So when we say socially economic disadvantage, so we're talking about those that are either underemployed or those that are unemployed, right? So two terms that you might have heard of in some of your other classes. We also talk about in the food banking world, we refer to those families as working families, right? So just to give you a more deeper dive into this, so 12% of individuals in the country are food insecure, 17% are children, 7% seniors, and 13% are participating in SNAP. Now, those are nationwide numbers. In Georgia, 13% of people, that's around 1.3 million people, are food insecure, 16% of children, 8% of seniors, 15% of people are participating in SNAP, and 36% of people are above the 185 poverty guideline. Now, you mentioned students. So we know that college students are struggling in an unprecedented way right now. There's definitely compelling data from the Hope Center at Temple University, and we'll share that with you guys later in the call. But I just want to share that with you. Fallon and Anitra, I think we'll talk later in the call more about food insecurity at the college level, so stay tuned for that. So what are the responses to hunger? Now, we divide these responses into community responses and government responses. Now, community responses are more varied in terms of services and capacity. They are often volunteer run and struggling for resources. Now, they're like us, right? Food banks, the agencies that we serve, food pantries, shelters, community kitchens, etc. Now, they're different in different communities. So a community response in my neighborhood looks very different than the community response in your neighborhood, etc. So that's just something to keep mindful of. Now, government responses, for the most part, look at income, household size, poverty guidelines, and help determine eligibility. They receive some level of federal funding. So those are SNAP, WIC, school meals, summer meals, etc. And of course, the earned income tax credit. So these are all government responses. Now I want to share with you guys another map, and this is a map that our data analysts on staff put together. It's an interactive map that shows the insecurity rate between 2018, which is the latest data available, versus 2020. So we're able to actually clearly see the impact of COVID and the impact that it's having in our community today. So I invite you to go to this website. I think Lan is putting it in the chat box as well, but you'll see this little bar here. You can actually move it, you can drag it left or right, and you're able to see the rates going up. And those figures, if you're a data-driven person, like a lot of us are in the food banking world, it's pretty revealing data. So I invite you to go and look at that. Now, here's a deeper breakdown of the impact that COVID has had in the state of Georgia versus our service area. You can see a spike going up. So we're going from 42% to 47% in our service area. Again, this is a difference between the state and our service area, but you can see here that we're going from 1 in 9 to 1 in 6 people facing food insecurity due to the impact that COVID has had in our economy. And this is the same data as well, but looking at child population. You can see we're going to be having a spike up 66%. And we're going from 1 in 7 to 1 in 4 children facing food insecurity in our service area. I want to close by saying in ways that you guys can take action. So what you can do to get involved. Now, you can donate food or fund drives. If you want to do a food drive, there's going to be, again, stay tuned in the chat box. You're able to see links of everything that I'm going to talk about right now. I also invite you to volunteer. So look up and sign up for opportunities at the food bank in Hands-On Atlanta. We actually have, we opened a few weeks ago our community food center in Stone Mountain. So we, the food bank, have actually opened our very first agency, if you will. It's a food pantry, and it's up and running. So we're being, of course, very careful with our volunteers as well as with families and individuals that are coming to pick up food. So we're not able to sign up volunteers in large masses right now because we are following CDC guidelines. However, you are able to go in there and participate, first come, first serve, basically. I also invite you, other ways that you can get involved is to become an advocate. So find your representative, register to vote, and make sure that you're aware of policies that are impacting our work and your community. I also invite you to continue to educate yourself and others, right? So look up for resources. Lan's going to put some in the chat box, but participate in webinars like this one, right? Just kind of be aware of everything that's going on and read up and everything that's surrounding your community and the impacts that, that are facing your neighbors. And this is a way that you can, if you know anyone or if you need help and you need to find assistance near you, this is one of our newest features, if you will, of how tools of how we can do this. You're able to text find food or comida to the number that appears on your screen. There's also a COVID map that shows the agencies that are near you in order for you guys to find help. So I invite you to share that with anyone that you think might need help, or if you need it, I invite you to use it. And that is me. JP, you can take it away.
I see there's a hand raised. Just be aware we're going to have a Q&A at the end, and I encourage you to ask your question at that time. And also, all the resources that are being provided, we're going to have a slide up, and also we're going to send an email at the end to share this information with you all. But feel free to take pictures and such of the screen as we're going through a lot of these things. So we're going to move on to Fallon. All righty.
Okay, so as Louise just been talking about, obviously food insecurity is a societal issue, and she did a great job of looking at what food insecurity has been, but also where it's going, especially as it relates to COVID. And so I wanted to kind of narrow down to more of the college student population. A lot of times in this work, we find that folks do not think of college students as either being food insecure or housing insecure, but it's quite the contrary. So the Hope Lab is a university, and they look at all of this information to determine how best to serve students who are experiencing these types of issues. So I thought it was interesting to share some statistics from their latest survey, and they had over 38,000 students respond across the country, and that was a 6.7% response rate. So 38,000 people responded. So it doesn't seem like a lot, but I think it gives an idea of where we're at right now. So for colleges, nearly 3 in 5 are experiencing basic needs insecurity. So that's pretty astounding. For students who are going to a 2-year school, so that could be a community college, 44% of students have been affected by COVID, and it's impacted their ability to make sure that they have food at all times. 38% of students who are attending a 4-year institution have been impacted by COVID. Homelessness, same information there. So 11% of students at community colleges are affected, and 15% of students who attend 4-year institutions. So one thing about these numbers is that this is only based on those who are reporting, which is interesting because I think it illustrates the numbers are much higher than what we realize. And I would imagine the same is true for Luis's information, that that's probably just based on what we know, but the crisis is much more of a problem. So I will say that the Hope Lab conducted a survey in 2015 and found similar results. So I think COVID has made things worse. But again, before this pandemic, food insecurity and housing insecurity is a major issue across colleges and universities. So that's kind of just to give you an idea of the numbers. And then we're going to talk about what Georgia State is doing to address things like food insecurity. So JP, if you want to go to the next slide, there you go. So just a little bit about Embark. So Embark was developed with support from the College Access Challenge Grant in 2012. And this is a university system of Georgia office that placed emphasis on finding ways to assist students who may be experiencing these types of things. So out of that, Embark network was born. And so it is something that occurs across most schools in Georgia that are within the university system. But of course, their Embark services are unique to their particular population. So Kennesaw's program may look a little bit different than Georgia State or Georgia College, that kind of thing, just depending on what the needs are. So overall, the idea is that we're providing assistance to students who are experiencing homelessness or those who may be exiting the foster care system. And so we are wanting to connect students with both on and off campus resources. So this includes, like I mentioned, food insecurity, housing, if a student needs a homeless verification letter. We also look at employment because we understand that is going to be kind of the game changer in being able to be self-sufficient. and other services. So we also understand that if a student is experiencing something like food insecurity or housing insecurity, then being engaged in college courses becomes that much more challenging. So when you're hungry or you're in a survival mode, sometimes, you know, it's that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so having those basic necessities is really key, I feel, to a student's success, both on campus and future. So we'll go to the next slide to talk more about Embark at Georgia State. So this, so one of the things that's really nice about Embark is that we like to partner with both individuals, departments, and organizations, both on and off campus. So this is a program, this program today is a good example of that. Because while we don't want students to experience these things, I think we want to empower students to be able to take control of their situations and be able to find resources on their own and find creative ways to mitigate their circumstances. So the other piece is how this looks for students who want to get involved, but also students who may need assistance. So you can go to the next slide. So as Louisa mentioned, there are several ways that you can get involved and also different ways that you can receive assistance. So, and I think, you know, with the volunteering piece, sometimes when you've been impacted by an issue like this, and you've been helped, sometimes there's a call, you know, an internal call to, you feel more empathy towards those who may be experiencing that. And so wanting to give back doesn't always mean you have to physically be present. You can engage in dialogue, again, like we're doing today, and bringing awareness to the issue. A lot of times we don't think about things that don't impact us, but what about your peers? What are they going through? How can you be a support system for them? So volunteering is one way, engaging in dialogue, but also you can donate to funds. So for Georgia State students, you guys may have heard that there is a financial hardship emergency assistance fund that students can apply to. But students can also donate to. So a lot of faculty and staff have donated to that fund. And the idea is that it's permanent. So while we have resources on campus like the Pantry, which JP will discuss more in just a few minutes, this is another way to supplement. So as COVID has impacted the campus's ability to have services delivered on campus, the emergency assistance fund, if a student gets assistance there, then they're immediately awarded money to obtain food. So it immediately addresses an issue and gives us an opportunity to connect with students to look at long-term plans and what's going on, what their situation is, and how we can eliminate this issue for them. So that's my plug for the Emergency Assistance Fund. The link is there if you'd like to visit the website. And again, I think it definitely builds a sense of community for Panthers, for alumni, faculty, staff. We're all in this together. And so I think the more we support each other, the better. So now we're going to move on to ways to request assistance. So like I mentioned, you can submit a request on the Dean of Students website, and we'll provide a link for that. And also, if you're a student and you're in need of services, or maybe you know another student who's in need of services, if they attend the Atlanta campus, then they can contact the Dean of Students office. They can either reach out to our primary email address and they will route it to one of the case managers. And so that would be myself or Anitra Patrick. We're also considered designated points of contacts. So the overall Embark network for the state, the nice thing about it is that there is a complete list of every designated point of contact at each school. So if a student is, let's say they're transferring from Georgia Southern and they're coming to Georgia State and they find themselves in some type of situation where they need assistance, then there is a point person that they can immediately connect with. So that would be myself or my supervisor, Anitra Patrick. For perimeter campus students, we have Assistant Dean Dr. India Blackburn, and she works very closely with her staff to address these issues. So their information is there. Know that this information is always available on the Dean of Students website, and we welcome any opportunity to engage, even if it's, sometimes students contact for, they might be doing a project, service learning project, or want to just know more and how they can get involved. But also if they may need assistance, this is a good way to connect with us. So that's kind of an overall view of what Embark looks like at Georgia State. Again, we realize that college students are struggling financially, and this pandemic has certainly made things even more intense. And so we want to make sure that students are aware of resources, but are also engaged in dialogue in how do we address these societal issues that plague us. So that is pretty much all I have. If there's anything I'm missing, please let me know from any of the panelists. Otherwise, I will turn it back over to JP.
All right, so our next presenter will be Maya Parker, and she's a representative of the Panthers Pantry. So an individual who actually worked in one of our pantry locations. So she will be presenting next. So Maya, take it away.
All right, again, my name is Maya. I work in civic engagement. My primary location at the Pantry is our Decatur campus. I just want to kind of reiterate why I'm here again. So the point is to kind of have a perspective from a student and from a work study student. So in the question and answer, like if you guys have any questions that would primarily pertain to perspective from students or the Panthers Pantry, then you can ask those. So I just want to focus exclusively on the Panthers Pantry. So Panthers Pantry is currently closed right now because of COVID. The plan is to reopen during the fall semester, but we'll see how that goes, and if anything changes, then we'll try to send out some correspondence to let you guys know that. If you wanted to reach for any additional resources, you could contact the Dean of Students. I know her contact number has already been shared once, but it is listed on this slide as well. Go to the next slide. Okay, so our mission and our vision statement for the Panthers Pantry. So our mission statement is to distribute food and basic necessities to the Georgia State community to alleviate stress associated with short-term food insecurity and other financial constraints in order to effectively reduce hunger and improve student success, which I know that we kind of share that in common with what Ms. Fallon was saying. Our vision statement is to alleviate the barriers and challenges associated with food insecurity and hunger by providing supplemental food assistance and basic necessities to at-risk students and faculty in need at Georgia State. So how did we get here? The first Panthers Pantry that was created was on the Atlanta campus, I'm sorry. It was established in 2014 by a group of graduate students. They put out a survey to research food insecurity and noticed that there was a very big need for it. So to create and solve the problem with volunteers and students, they created the Panthers Pantry there at the main campus. The Decatur campus was founded by Melody Dantzler in 2014. She connected with also community partners to bring awareness. During the merge of Perimeter College and also Georgia State University is when Melody Dantzler's nonprofit organization, which is called Phenomenal Transformation, merged with the Panthers Pantry, and that's the Panthers Pantry that we know today. The next pantry is on our Dunwoody campus, which was created by Dr. Garrett, which is a political science professor. She became aware of the food insecurity on campus and decided to make a resource for students, which created the Panthers Pantry there in 2017. And next is our Clarkston campus. Our Clarkston campus was created through different programs like the Civic Engagement, Library, counseling and testing centers coming together to create another resource for students on campus. Once they were given a permanent location, they were able to partner with the Atlanta Food Community Bank and start the Panthers Pantry at that campus as well. So who's eligible for this particular resource on campus? It's very simple. All you have to do is be a Georgia State University student and currently enrolled in classes for whatever semester that it currently is. So what do we provide? Each campus pretty much provides these basic items here listed. So that goes for feminine hygiene, canned goods, breakfast items, drink, basic hygiene, fruits and veggies, and more. But there are some exclusive items to each particular campus. Like the Atlanta campus does have like a refrigerative system. So you're going to get your milk and your eggs and more refrigerated items there. Another example is Decatur campus. We do have clothes. So each campus has its own unique extensions to that list. So where can you find us? On the Atlanta campus, it is currently in the basement parking of Urban Life, but they will be moving to 75 Piedmont. On the Decatur campus, it's going to be right across from the gymnasium in the SC building. On Dunwoody campus, it's going to be in the Student Life Center. And in Clarkston, it's going to be in the basement of the SC building. I can't give you an exact location, like street address, but if you're on these campuses, it's going to be really easy to find them. I mean, if you're already familiar with these campuses, then you already know those buildings. And ways to get involved. So the most used way to get involved that we see a lot on campus is a simple donation. Each campus is equipped with their own donation location. And so listed on the PowerPoint, you're going to see the different areas of each campus that you can donate. The next is going to be an Amazon wish list. So you can use that link, and I'm guessing we're going to put that also in the chat so that you guys can press it more easily. So you don't have to write down all those little words. So our Amazon wish list, you can take advantage of that. And then also you can also use that link at the bottom to make a monetary donation as well. And then the last slide is just some contact information. So this is our director and also our engagement advisor. So these are the people that if you want to talk to somebody directly, you're going to reach out to these two individuals to, I guess, for anything really. So jot down that information, and those are our lead contacts for the Panthers Pantry on campus. And that's all.
Thank you, Maya. And also to add to that, we also have links on the GivePulse site for each pantry. So if you're not familiar with GivePulse, it's our volunteer management system. And you can actually go on there to our various locations for the Panthers Pantry. And right now, Atlanta is the one who truly utilizes that because we haven't had a huge need for volunteers. But when we do need volunteers for perimeter, we usually have that listed on social media and such. So definitely follow us on social media. It's the PC Panthers Pantry, and they have a Facebook and Instagram account if you like to follow them. So next up, we're going to have our Q&A section. So for those, all right. So our next slide on this is just the information. A lot of it was shared, some of it may not be. So just wanted to have this up during the question and answer section. And then again, like I said, we'll be sharing this information out via email afterwards, and also just a follow-up survey for those who were able to attend as well. So that being said, if you have questions, please put those in the chat and we'll go from there. So I see there's one right now. Is there a cap on how many you can apply for assistance?
So I'm assuming, yeah, so I'm assuming they're talking about the Emergency Assistance Fund. So technically there's not a cap on how many times you can apply. However, there is a cap on the amount that you can receive. And know that because this is a relatively new process with the intention of it being permanent, there may be changes in eligibility as we move along, because I think that was one of the important things about talking about the importance of donating, is that we need to have that ongoing support in order to support that fund. So no, there's not a limit, but if a student requests assistance, they need to be very specific about what they're requesting assistance for. So if it's rent or utilities, they would need to provide documentation that has their information on it, linking them with that account. And typically, if they indicate that they are hungry or they haven't been eating regularly, usually they are provided either from $100 to $250, as I mentioned previously, to go ahead and access money immediate to find food. And then if they are requesting assistance for bill help, then that goes to a committee for review. And so they'll get a response via their Panther answer. And so it's important that they communicate and check their student email address regularly.
Thank you, Fallon. So I think the next question is Dr. Blackburn still serving as dean of students for Perimeter after reviewing the Prof's list? I didn't see her listed. I'm asking to make sure I correct the content. Correct content.
Can you ask that question one more time? I didn't quite catch it.
So essentially, is Dr. Blackburn still the dean of students for Perimeter?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, Melody, that is correct, and she would be the person to contact for Perimeter. Next question. Can international students apply for the Emergency Assistance Fund?
So again, know that there, in addition to the Emergency Assistance Fund, there are other sources of funding that are meant for these types of things, but understand that different sources of funding have different eligibility. So for instance, an international student may not be eligible for something like the CARES Act because federally they've mandated that that is only going to certain students. However, if they apply, the goal is to research to see if there are other sources of funding that can help. So I do know that international students have applied and have received. And again, please remember that eligibility and sources of funding can change. So depending on when they apply can also impact what's available. I hope that helps.
All right, if any more questions, put them in the chat box. I'll go ahead and pose another question. So this would be for the food bank. I guess for when you get back to volunteering, do you know how you're making sure volunteers are safe?
Yeah, so we are, again, we're following CDC guidelines when we're having volunteers on site. I know, and Len, you can jump into if you'd like, but I know that for the community food center, which is, again, the new pantry that food bank opened, we're having a very limited number of, I think we're having, if I'm not mistaken, around 8 volunteers per shift. And we are following CDC guidelines. So we're asking them, of course, to wear masks. Gloves are being provided on site as well. And we're doing the social distancing. So we're taking all the precautions that we can to just ensure that everyone's being safe.
So I guess for all the groups, what are some of the changes that you've seen due to COVID-19?
I guess I can start. I touched on it a little bit during my presentation, but for us, it's just been, there's been a demand and a shift in our distribution. We have been, we've had new partnerships due to everything that's going on. So we've been able to do more of the school pantries than we've done in the past, partnering with new schools, focusing on more senior focused mobile pantries. And if you're not familiar with what mobile pantries are, they're essentially truckloads of food that we take to schools or different areas that don't have a physical permanent pantry. So that's what those are. Our distribution has increased significantly. Like I said, we usually move around 9 million pounds of food every 3 months pre-COVID, and last month alone we did 10 million. So that just kind of should give you kind of like a scope of what how our operations have been significantly impacted. And Len, jump in if there's anything that I missed too. There's been so many changes. So.
Yeah, I think you've gotten it all. Basically, our biggest effort is to keep up with the demand, and we're very lucky to have a lot of partner agencies that are working with us. So pre-COVID, it was over 700 partner agencies, which is the pantries, the churches, schools, mobile pantries, things like that. And then we're stepping outside of our norm to create the different partnerships to reach different audiences, like Louisa said, the senior population. We are figuring out ways to deliver food to the senior population who normally would be able to come and pick up their food. We're figuring out ways to work with the hospitality industry who are heavily affected, how to bring mobile pantries distributions to them that normally don't occur. So just really thinking outside of the box on how to provide more food, how to better support our partner agencies so that they can continue operating, not only stay open, but operate at an increased capacity, and then taking on new opportunities and just be able to get food constantly out there.
Yeah, so I would say for us, obviously we've experienced an increase in need, and so what I've found with I would say we've definitely had over 4,000 students apply for emergency assistance since it opened up, and the biggest issue is the loss of employment. Most of our students are working either part-time or working in jobs where, it may not be enough for them to sustain themselves. So I think that, coupled with having to find more ways to deliver services virtually, which we've done a good job of. But I think long-term, the effects of COVID for a long time, and not just from a medical standpoint. Obviously, the unemployment numbers are out of control, and so our students are right there with them. And I think the challenge for college students is they may not know how to navigate some of those systems, like applying for SNAP or unemployment insurance, or because they're students, they may not be eligible for those programs because of their stipulations. And so we want to, again, get creative and continue to work with on and off campus supports to broaden what we can provide to students. But it also, I think, takes students' involvement in that process. So I think, like everyone else, just, being able to keep up with the need. I think this will be with us for some time.
All right, so the way that I guess Panthers Pantry on campus is kind of addressing it, since we're an on-campus program, so we're kind of required to be face-to-face in a, an actual place to distribute food. We don't do that off of campus. So right now we're just kind of waiting until we can get back to school for fall campus. But I do know in the summer, our primary goal was to establish community programs and get that to our students so that they could get alternative resources. So I guess if it comes down to it, that's kind of what we would continue to do, and just making sure that we found programs that were, relatively close to students, so that they could have an alternative resource other than the actual pantry on campus.
Yeah, and I know right now we're also reviewing and looking at ways to bring back the pantries, but moving into a new space, probably of like a bagging system of sorts or something, to where you essentially order ahead and you come and pick up your items. As the shopper experience is great, but because of COVID, presents its own challenges. So there's a lot of things that I know we're looking at as a whole to figure out how to move forward with a lot of things to be able to reopen and open safely. That being said, I don't see any other questions. Anybody have any other questions? Panel, do you have anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
I did want to say something. Just again, as a student perspective, what Fallon is talking about, that emergency grant, I actually was a recipient of that. So I can, attest to the fact that it is a great resource. It's not hard to get. The people that you work with are very friendly and welcoming, and they make you very comfortable in the process. So I just wanted to say that I haven't taken advantage of that. It does do what it's supposed to do, and it's a great resource. So donating to that is it's a really good idea.
Thank you, Maya. And I do also want to stress that donations do not, no donation is too small, even if it's $1, because if you have 50,000 people donating $1, it adds up quickly. So know that the expectation is not that you have to come out of pocket a lot. And we realize that right now a lot of people cannot. And so we're also looking for outside donors. And so the university is consistently fundraising to sustain these programs. But again, the idea, and I will say I've been really impressed with Georgia State, because when it came to this emergency assistance fund, because not every school has the ability to do this. And so I think it speaks volumes about how invested the Georgia State community is to our students. So I hope that continues, and I hope it continues to benefit students like you, Maya.
Yeah, and something else that can be shared too. I know because the pantries are closed, we are referring students to, again, the Emergency Assistance Fund, because if it's a need just around food, that's something else they're assisting with in the meantime, especially being that the pantries are closed right now. So that way we have that service still available, but it's just a different capacity, and that capacity may adjust as we move into the fall semester, but that's where that supplemental assistance is right now. Well, that being said, go ahead.
Sorry, one last thing. I just want to say, please, anyone who is in need, again, text Find Food or Comida to the number that appears on the screen there, because we are able to connect you with agencies that are serving in this time. Again, you can also connect with the Community Food Center, which is our agency. We are located in Stone Mountain. We're open 2 to 3 times a week, and we're able to provide groceries for people, and we're following all the guidelines. So we're actually, for our particular agency, the Community Food Center, you drive, it's kind of like a drive-through that you open up your trunk and they load you up with groceries, so you don't even have to get out of your car. So I just wanted to do a plug-in for that real quick.
Thank you, Lisa. I see we have a few more questions pop up.
Look, could I ask something really quick, JP, about Louisa? Just out of curiosity, I know that folks may have certain allergies or things like that in terms of food. Do you guys have any program, or do you have any groceries that are specifically for, like, let's just say someone is not able to eat meat or something like that? Do you guys address that, or is it just kind of a general bagging system?
Yeah, so for that, for the community food center, we're actually doing appointment based only. So you regardless have to call Len, do you mind entering, do you have the number there with you? Can you enter it in the chat box? Or I can send, actually I can send it to you, JP, to share with everyone who's participating today. Again, it is appointment based, so you have to call to make an appointment regardless. And we have had clients that have dietary restrictions, and they just let us know on the phone, and we make a note of it for the staff members and the volunteers that are present at the community food center to be mindful of that when gathering the groceries for that particular family or individual.
I will also say that for our other partner agencies that are operating around our service area, they do try to take that into account. So if you pull up and it's a drive-through distribution, they hand you your produce separately. They hand you your meat separately. Your cheese and your milk are separately. So you do have the power to say, you know, I'm allergic to milk and I can't take that. They don't just give it all to you at the same time.
So Louisa, where is that located?
Our community, it's located in Stone Mountain. It's Parker Drive, I believe. What's the, I'll send the details of the information to you, JP, so that you can share with a follow-up email to everybody. But it's located in Parker, there in Stone Mountain. I can tell you it's behind the Chick-fil-A.
Great, I'll definitely get that shared.
Where the Chick-fil-A is. So.
Yeah, and this, just so you know, this is the first actual food distribution, food pantry for the food bank that has a physical location. So it's actually a really cool thing to have. So we have another question. If the pantries are open the fall semester, are volunteers needed in an Atlanta location, or actually spots available to volunteer? So as far as location at the Atlanta campus, we'll have that on Give Pulse, but right now we don't have any, being we're not open. But as soon as we have some idea of what things are looking like, we'll definitely send out some information. But as far as other locations, I would refer to that volunteer section. So, you know, signing up with the Atlanta Community Food Bank volunteering, I know they're limited on what they can do. I think the only place you can volunteer with them right now is that Stone Mountain location. And then you can also reach out to Hands on Atlanta to volunteer to various different, you know, things going on, social justice issues. Open Hand Atlanta is also, if you're not familiar with them, they're looking for people to help package meals all the time, and they're desperate to bring in volunteers. So that's another great nonprofit to work with. And again, just peruse and look at our Give Pulse portal for the various nonprofits that are looking for volunteers. So that's what I would encourage you to look at. So then the last question, Fallon, can staff receive assistance?
Not the emergency assistance fund is for students only. However, I know that there is an employee wellness office on campus. And while I don't believe that they have any financial support, but I do know that they can probably be a resource if someone is experiencing some financial hardship or food insecurity. But at this time, the emergency assistance is for students only.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, if there's nothing else, and there's really any other questions, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. And I think thank you again for all our panelists and all those who came and attended. Again, we'll share the information that's listed. We'll also look into making the actual recording available as soon as possible as well, so you can go back and review, watch again, or share if you want to share with others. So again, thank you for your time, and y'all have a good rest of your day. Thank you all.
Thank you.